In 1964, Soviet people didn't notice the event, which took place in Moscow, but those who noticed didn't give importance. October plenum removed from the post of the first secretary of the CPSU Nikita Khrushchev. Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev became the general secretary. A new period of history, which will be called stagnation, began. But this title is not quite correct, since the period of stagnation in the contents was a preservation of political and economic system and ossification of the social development. Not accidentally, the term stagnation was introduced by the last political leader of USSR, Gorbachev. It was not stagnant, it was the restoration of the Stalinist totalitarian and repressive system, and although it has not acquired such massive and tragic form, but still continued to defend the Soviet Empire from penetrating ideas of democracy, humanism, and human values, respect for human freedom, and ideas of civil society. The repressions that took place were selective, directed against dangerous enemies of the regime. In political literature, it is called neo-Stalinism. Restoration of the totalitarian state began, as always, with the change of ideology. Realizing the impossibility of building communism was launched a new concept, developed socialism. Society was again deceived by the Communist Party. Most people didn't know the real state of affairs in the country. The Soviet Union's isolation from the outside world separated Soviet people from the human standard of living, advanced technologies, basic freedom of conscience, expression, and religion. Already in 1965, in the report devoted to the 20th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War, Brezhnev noted the Stalin's contribution in the defeat of fascism. Texts about Stalin's personality cult were removed from textbooks. Began to appear books, movies that elevated Stalin's role in the history of USSR. The second attempt to rehabilitate Stalin took place in 1969 when the newspaper Pravda was going to publish an article that condemned a decisions of 20th 22nd Congress of the CPSU. At the last minute, Brezhnev refused to publish the event resolution. Another wave of struggle against national and cultural opposition of the Soviet system started. The flower of Ukrainian literature, XXth, Stus, Ivan Dzubas, Verstyuk, Svetlichny were under repression. The regime used all legal and illegal methods to fight with manifestations of dissent. The KGB had a special sixth division against dissidents. The Criminal Code of Ukraine introduced amendments to Art 62, where dissident was acquitted with treason and was punished by imprisonment for a term of 10 to 15 years. From March 1972, to deal with dissidents, they began to use psychiatric hospitals. It was happened with Grigorenko. There were no qualitative changes in the Soviet Union after the signing of the Helsinki Accords in 1975, which had a separate item that was guaranteed by participants the political rights of the citizens. Human rights organizations have been created in the Soviet Union until 1980, were defeated, and their participants received various prison terms. On the background of the revival of the totalitarian state were falling the living standards, growing deficit of essential consumer goods, the quality of Soviet goods were worse than their foreign analogues, extensive way of the economic development led to a fall of national income. Moreover, in Soviet foreign policy has not changed the aggressive policy of the Soviet state, which supported political regimes in Latin America and Asia. In 1979, there was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, which led to many thousands of victims. It was a logical further decline and collapse of the Soviet system. In 1985, there was the second attempt to reform the Soviet political and economic system, known as restructuring. The period of adjustment associated with Gorbachev, the process of restructuring used for the democratization of social life, economic reform on market fundamentals, the termination of Cold War, and the recognition of the priority of human values. Beginning with the plenum of the Central Committee in April 1985, it included the complex of transformations of political, economic, cultural, and social spheres of Soviet society. Many initiatives were quite progressive, expanding inner party democracy and the appearance of new political parties, completion of rehabilitation initiated after the 20th Party Congress. In 1990s, abolition of Article 6 of the Constitution of the USSR on the leading and guiding role of the Communist Party. 1987's 1988's reforming of the economy, expansion of autonomy of enterprises and permission of self-employment, disarmament policy, moratorium on nuclear testing, the withdrawal of Soviet troops from Afghanistan. However, the process to prevent the collapse of the USSR failed. Chernobyl disaster hit on the authority of management and not the fact of the disaster itself, but as hushing about it for almost a week. Centrifugal tendencies, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia started on their sovereignty, and by 1990, their sovereignty declared all 15 Soviet republics. On March 17, 1991, at the All-Union referendum, almost 75% of citizens voted for preservation of the state. The preparation of the new Union Treaty and the Constitution of the USSR began its work. Signing the treaty was scheduled for August 20, 1991. But on August 19, the conservative wing of the Communist Party carried out a coup in the country, August coup. Although it was unsuccessful, the fate of the USSR was solved. During the September 16, 1990s to December 16, 1991, all 15 republics of the once great state declared its independence. On December 25, 1991, Soviet President Gorbachev resigned. Until now, there were a lot of talk about the destruction of the Soviet Union, but following its historical periods, stopping at the main stages of its existence, it should be said that such states based on the humiliation of national consciousness, the dominance of a national culture, national identity denial, using totalitarian repressive apparatus, restriction of rights and freedoms, the authority of political party and ideology has no internal capacity potential to the existence, and their destruction is a historical pattern, not a political accident.